Live from the Ballz Visual Radio Studios, this is the Blades on Ballz show. And now, here's your host, the voice of South African rugby himself, Hugh Bladen. Hugh, it's over to you.
Well, we opened this morning with Dire Straits, Sultans of Swing. And good morning to you. Well, it's another Monday morning. Amazing how quickly these Monday mornings come around. Well, it was a great sporting weekend, I think. The good wins for the Sharks and the Stormers. The Cheetahs, wow, the Cheetahs have had a fantastic, best tour ever. And how many people say the Stormers or the Bulls or the Sharks, they're my number one team, and then my number two team is the Cheetahs. I think thousands of people do that and say that the Cheetahs are their second team. But I think the Sharks, the Sharks giving the Rebels such a hiding. Funny enough, when the Sharks played the Kings down in Port Elizabeth, they got, in the first 25 minutes of the game, I was down there covering the game, and the first 25 minutes of the game, they got about 83% of the possession and couldn't score. And there were no runners. We've talked about this. I talked about this last week with Dan Retief. Sid may be coming in. He's been to the biokinetician, and then he had to go and run an errand. He's working, for SSG, for his nephew's security company, big security company it is. They provide a whole host of services, and so Sid's got to run an errand or two for them. My point being that Kobus Reinach and Pat Lambie were passing and then going on the loop and looping, and so they had runners coming all the time and running at the Rebels the whole time, and eventually the Sharks scored some really great tries, and I'm just wonder sort of why they don't do that on a more regular basis. Remember, you can tweet us on Ballz Radio. You don't have to say Ballz Visual Radio. It's Ballz Radio. I've got a little bit of a problem here because I can't hear myself in my earphones.
Okay, Maz will help you.
Okay, Maz is going to help me. I need to, I've got that tuned right up, and I can sort of. Maz is organising another pair of earphones for me. And then, the Cheetahs have just been great. What an away run they've had, really fabulous. So sorry about Johan Goosen. Again, I wonder whether they didn't start him too early. Right. Now we can see if we can hear ones ourselves. Yeah, that's better. Oh, that's much better. Thanks, Maz. I wonder whether Johan Goosen didn't come back too early, and maybe we'll even try and get hold of Schalk Burger and see what Schalk Burger's situation is with his injury. Unfortunately, I've left my cell phone at home because I know I have Schalk Burger Senior's number. Did you see the Crusaders play? The Crusaders play the Kings, and one's got to give the Kings credit for gutsy tackling. But when you see the ball from a ruck situation, the Crusaders are all spread out. They don't form these little pods, and then you may well find that you have a front ranker running in the midfield who will run into the opposition and create second phase. But they don't form these little pods that the Bulls and the Kings are so fond of. Also great to see, we're going to jump around a little bit, but great to see Gio Aplon. It's funny, hey? Gio. We normally, when we are a little undecided about guys, how do you pronounce the guy's name, we ask his mother, and mothers normally know. So we have been told by Gio Aplon's mother that it's Gio. And great to see Gio running at a fullback and actually the fullback not even touching him. And he dodged the guy. You know, people talk about side steps and swerves and stepping and this sort of thing. All Gio did was run at the guy, throw him the wrong way, and you know, you run where a guy isn't. I'm worried that you know, if other South African backs got the ball in a similar situation, whether some of them wouldn't just go hell for leather and run straight into the fullback. So wonderful to see that try by Gio Aplon. Comes from a place called Horston, which is if you travel to Mossel Bay, where Jake White has a pad. Quite a nice pad too. Just before you get to Mossel Bay, you get a place called Horston that they say is quite a tough area. That's where Gio Aplon comes from. And I just think that the Stormers were tremendous, breaking the Brumbies' unbeaten run. So now there's not a Super Rugby team that hasn't lost a game. So it just shows you the standard and how tough it is and how difficult it is to play at that level week in and week out. My question today, and if you go into and look it up, you will find out obviously which school it is. If you guess, I reckon a whole lot of you wouldn't be able to guess which school has produced the fourth most Springboks. Paul Roos, test playing Springboks. Paul Roos. See a smile from across the desk here, Simon's old school. 43 test playing Springboks. Grey College in Bloemfontein, 38. And then Bishops, 35. Bishops, of course, haven't had a Springbok for a while. I think their last one could have been Dave van Hestelen. Francois Lowe, quite right. Oh, he's only you because he looked it up.
I knew that.
You knew it. Yeah, Francois Lowe. Francois Lowe, who of course is Jan Pickard's grandson. His name goes something like Francois Johannes Pickard Lowe. Jan Pickard, for some of those who are really young, who may be watching, of course, the former Springbok lock forward who became a multimillionaire businessman and the president of the Stormers, president of Western Province Rugby, in those wonderful years when they won the Currie Cup 4 years in a row, 1980s. They won it 4 years in a row, was it? Great years, and you had the rivalry between the multimillionaires of Jan Pickard and Louis Late. Both of them have since passed on. So, what else? And New Zealand are giving England a bit of a clap at cricket, which is quite fun to see. And of course, let's forget about our cricketers. Oh, hasn't it been a series for A.B. de Villiers? He's just absolutely superb. And I believe that he is an outstanding, like a two-handicap golfer. I think it was Dan Retief who said that. I see the Citizen said controversy mars Vettel's win. Well, Sasha is going to be in later on, so Sasha will talk about Grand Prix racing. I have to admit, I'm not really into. I mean, I'm into all sports, but I can honestly say I've never sat and watched one entire Grand Prix race. Got figures flying it up on the screen here, with Simon checking various things. St Andrews College, Grahamstown, flashed up, and I think they've only produced 2 Springboks. I'll tell you an interesting thing, that the top 5 schools, by my reckoning, have produced about 157 Springboks. The top 5 schools have produced 157 Springboks, and 155 schools have produced one Springbok. So one Springbok. City was the only Springbok from Maris Obs. Don't even know whether Maris Obs is still going. It was just up the road from where I went to school. And in fact, Kes have only produced 3, one of whom won't show up on various websites because he never played in a test, but he went in 1933 on Benny Osler's tour. I know all this because I met his nephew, Fatty Forrest, was at Kes, and he went on the 1933 tour. Benny Osler was the captain, and he HM Fatty Forrest, and he broke his leg playing against Swansea at the St Helens ground, and sort of never really recognised even in the annals of King Edward's sport. I think they might have finally got him, but of course Joe van Niekerk was the first ever test playing Springbok, and Brian Habana. Talking about those guys coming back early, we've got quite a long injury list, hey? But well, I think Schalk Burger probably came. I believe they made a bit of a mess of his first operation, and then he came back too early. Maybe, Sam, we will get Schalk Burger on the line. I think it's time we had a chat to Schalk and found out how he's doing and what he's doing with himself, and whether he's lugging wine bottles around the farm and stuff like that. I think we're going to have a little bit of music right now. Tweet us on Ballz Radio, and let's hear your opinions on the weekends.
Turn myself on. Have you given the question, today's question?
Yeah. Which school has produced the fourth most Springbok Test rugby players? I can tell you third is Bishops. I just told you that. But Bishops had a whole host of players in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, because I think the Bishops Masters were the guys who sort of introduced rugby in the Cape, and they selected from. I mean, I think the green and gold of the Springboks was originally the Bishops rugby jerseys. I know they now play in blue, but I think the original jersey was a Bishops green jersey that they played the first Test match in. And so they had a whole host of 35 of them. Of course, Robbie Fleck went there, and Selborne Boom, Guy Kebbell, Christian Stewart. Played golf with Christian Stewart. He's not a bad golfer, I tell you. He plays off about 5 or 6. Guy Kebbell. Peter Whip, of course, Dougal MacDonald, and then before him, wow, you got to go all the way back to Tommy Gentles. Tommy Gentles, I knew Tommy Gentles. He sadly passed away as well. The shortest Springbok ever to play for South Africa, 5'3.5". He's a little fella, but he was like a pocket dynamite. He also opened the batting for SA Schools. Surprisingly, went over and played rugby league, but they tell me that Tommy Gentles was like a pocket battleship. What year did he play, Tommy Gentles? He was born in 1934, but he played against the 1955 British Lions. You may say, oh, well, did you go and watch those games? No, I was only about 7 years old or something.
No, but you can remember them.
I can only remember them because of what I've read and what I've seen in movies and what I've heard from. Cliff Morgan was one of my heroes because he came out in 1958 when I just started playing rugby at Kes. He came out with the British Barbarians, and Cliff Morgan was a player. Talk about twinkle toes. In fact, the only South African I've ever seen with twinkle toes like that was Jannie Barnard. And remember the way Phil Bennett could sidestep, and I mean, if you look at tapes of the 1974 British Lions in South Africa, and Phil Bennett scored a try from about the halfway line at Loftus Versfeld. I was there that day. A bit embarrassing because the British Lions wiped us out. And Dougal MacDonald, who is now the president of UCT, great to see the former players who get involved. Wayne Klaasen involved with Tuckies, and Dougal MacDonald, and Hugo van As, who played 98 games for Transvaal. In fact, I was on the Transvaal selection committee when we dropped Hugo van As. Harry Viljoen was the coach, and Harry had played with Hugo van As, and Harry was sort of very much a Hugo van As man, and I was a selector right through Hugo's career, and it didn't really come into the picture that we would, I'm not sure that we even realized how many games he had played, but we dropped him after 98 games, and he was the hell in with me.
He was the Murin.
He was the Murin. And came and actually gave me 1,000 words. We've since become really sort of quite good friends, because he's a good coach of UJ, who, by the way, are playing Tuckies this afternoon, 4:45 kick-off at LC de Villiers. It's not LC de Villiers, I think it's Tuks.
It's the Tuks Sports Grounds.
Sports Grounds. That's UJ, and then followed by the Marties will be in action. And the Marties, of course, have had such a fabulous run in this year's Varsity Cup. So those are the semi-finals of Varsity Cup, and I was telling you, Hugo van As, he was the hell in with me. Funnily enough, I said to him, Hugo, it's quite strange, my mate, you haven't once thanked me for picking you 98 times. So that was quite fun. On my way here, I suddenly thought, I really fancy the Bee Gees. And
now you tell me.
No. You can put Simon's the main man in choosing the music, but the Bee Gees are one of my favorite groups.
Okay, what do you want to hear from the Bee Gees? Staying Alive.
Monument High, Sean, Monument. Jamal. Monument. It worries me actually that Monument have been going for about 76 years, and they've only produced about 6 Springboks. Starting with Yori Muller, we might go into that. Yeah, we'll go into that. I think it's 6 or 7. Monument. There we are. 7. Funnily enough, most of them, the Monument normally have a fantastic pack of forwards. Willem Alberts is about their main oak in terms of forwards. Heinke van der Merwe, Jaco Tauta, Yori Muller, Brendan Venter, Christo Wagenaar. Look at that. Wagenaar, Venter, Muller, Jacques Ferry. First 4 Mono Springboks were all centres. And then Jaco Tauta at fullback. So they've only produced 2 forwards. But 7 from Mono, so no. Meneer, jy is nie reg nie. And you... Oh, now... Sir or Mr. Viljoen. Sir or Mr. Viljoen. Something ridiculous, Loke.
Yeah, I think it's a typo.
Yeah, I think it's a typo. It's good. With a question mark. Something ridiculous like Sachs. You did right. You did right. And most of them were, late 1800s. Let's have a look at that list. Percy, remember Percy was a Sax boy. Dates of birth, Opa Versveld. That he was one of the Versveld brothers that after Loftus was one of the brothers, and that's Loftus Versveld, who was named after. And I mean, I'm looking down the list there. The one, Jack van Druten, I didn't know. Frank Mellish, I knew of. Clive van Reineveld, not the cricketer, born in 1891. Frank Mellish, born 1897. Jack van Druten, born 1898. Then we go to Frankie Waring, who was Minister of Sport for a while, 7th of November 1908. And then Cecil Moss, and then born in February 1925. Cecil Moss played against the 1949 All Blacks. Dr. Cecil Moss, and he was very involved with the Springboks and coaching level and that sort of thing. So he was born in 1924, and then we go all the way, born in 1974. Hell, Steve Percy, you know those 1974 Lions, it seems to me like it was just the other day that they were here. And Percy, I see, born on the 15th of March 1974, and he was their last Springbok. Is that right? Sachs. Yeah, they've got a couple of 7 Springboks.
Mm.
Yeah. Carl Brown.
Paul
Yeah,
Delport.
Paul Delport, quite right. And of course, Peter Kirsten was at Sax. I remember seeing Peter Kirsten when he was a schoolboy. There was a scrum half that I played with, a guy called Wynand Nortier, who moved down to Cape Town. And I went down to Cape Town on business and stayed with Wynand. And Wynand said, Sax are playing Wynberg this afternoon. You've got to go and watch this game. We'll go together. And we went, and Peter Kirsten was playing fly half for Sax. Absolutely brilliant.
Didn't Peter Kirsten play for Western Province as well?
He got hurt playing for Western Province against Transvaal at Ellis Park. And in fact, that was the last game of rugby he played. Because, he was only about 19 or 20. And he got hurt and then decided, no, I'm going to go with cricket. So we lost an outstanding. Amazing how many really good fly halves were good cricketers.
Or vice versa?
Well, yeah, Gavin Cowley,
Herschel
Gibbs, Peter Kirsten, Darryl Cullinan played fly half for Marty's, Hugh Bladen. I only said that because I heard Polly talking about great backward points, and he was mentioning Jolty and Fuff, and the Herschel Gibbs, and then he threw in, Sean Pollock. I only said that but I did play first league cricket for old heads. We had a lot of fun playing cricket. Played in the days of when the Springboks played club cricket. So I can remember playing against Wanderers when Eddie Barlow was their captain, and Wanderers in fact had about 6 Springboks in their side. The likes of Tiger Lance, Dennis Lindsay, Athol McKinnon, Chaka Watson played for them, but wasn't a Springbok because he was chosen for that cancelled tour in 71. Now we've got, thanks guys, Bladez on Ballz question, which that's the question. Sean Combrink, no, it wasn't Mourners, and we've got a couple of guys who got it right. One said Wynberg or Sax. Who was that? Page down, scroll down for me.
Who said that? Sir or Mr. Viljoen?
Sir or Mr. Viljoen. Wynberg or Sax. Really good. Yeah. That's fantastic. Okay, now we can hit some.
Okay, here's some BGs for you, Blade. Staying alive.
Thank you. When we used to bop and jive, Rick Astley was a bit of a hit. Jerry Sachs, you're quite right, well done. And Desmond Smith, morning Blades, isn't it Gray's? Well, there's Gray's Hospital, and it's Gray College. I went down to Gray College and addressed their school assembly. Gray College, because since 1992, when we re-entered World Rugby, when we got back into World Rugby, the first test, it's amazing that it's 11 years ago. No, 1992, 20 years ago. 20 years ago, it's quite remarkable. I think I've told you, I've mentioned the fact that, when I'm doing research on some of these Super Rugby matches or Varsity Cup matches, you check date of birth, and you see these guys who were born in 1991, even 1994, some of them. And then you reckon, well, we remember the World Cup in 1995 like it was yesterday, and some of those guys were 1 year old at the time. So you probably find that there are quite a whole lot of guys that you say, who's Joel Stransky? And they wouldn't know. I remember having a discussion with Ray Jennings about this. We were actually playing golf at Mshlali with Mickey Gerber, who was a Springbok fullback way back in 1958. Played 2 against the French and 1 in 1960 against the All Blacks. Against Scotland in Port Elizabeth. And we were talking about this exact same point and saying, it's amazing how the lighties don't remember, and they maybe don't read, and so they wouldn't know. There will be some people who, wouldn't have heard of. Can you imagine it, Francois Pienaar? If you're 10 years old or you're 11 years old or something like that. Ray didn't believe it, so we went back. We were staying at St. Kwasi Beach. went back to the house, and Mickey's sons were there, Christopher and Johnny, who Johnny's now chairman of the King Edward's governing body, and Christopher was probably 13, 14 years old, and we would supply them with questions about some of the Springboks of yesteryear. And one or two they did know, but there were a whole host of well-known names that they... And I remember Ray being quite surprised. We're going to get Schalk Burger Senior on the phone. Schalk Burger Senior and I toured in 1994 with the Springboks to New Zealand. And he's quite a tourist, is Schalk Burger Senior.
Didn't you guys go to Argentina together?
Yes, we did. We did. I think that was probably in 1993. 1994, we went via Hong Kong to Dunedin, where the Springboks played the Test match against the All Blacks, 1994, and just lost, in fact. Francois Pienaar didn't play because he was injured, and Tiaan Strauss captained the side. We lost that 3-test series. But it was one of those old, tours, fabulous old tours where they played against the provinces. And so we really got around New Zealand. And Schalk was my mere commentator.
He tells a very interesting story about you guys in the commentary box in Argentina. Didn't you have trouble? Weren't you sitting way up high somewhere and it was difficult to get in and out of it?
No, that was New Zealand.
Was that New Zealand?
New Zealand, I think it was Athletic Park, where the commentary box was ridiculous. It was a rickety old thing on some loose bolts, a wooden thing, and I got up there where you had to walk up through a up a ladder and then through a trap door. And Schalk thought it would be a little bit of a lark to shake this thing when I was in it. And I tell you, I wasn't amused at all. Because when I looked out the back, it was a long, slopey walk up the popular side at Athletic Park, and then you climbed up this ladder. When I looked out the window out the backside, it looked onto the street, and we were about 6 stories up. And I mean, it was seriously uncomfortable. In fact, it was amazing in 1994 how rickety and old and run down the New Zealand stadiums were. They've now, of course, upgraded, and they've got really great fantastic stadiums. Eden Park, we sat in a prefab little hut on top of the ground, on the roof of the grandstand. I'll tell you something, that Boom Boom and Freedy hitting that ball over the grandstand at the golf course end at the Wanderers. I sat on that grandstand roof and commentated rugby there when the British Lions were here in 1980, because they played rugby at the Wanderers when they were rebuilding Ellis Park, and had to climb up a ladder. Thank God it had sort of those metal rings around, so there's a sort of safety factor, and you had to climb up onto the top of that roof to go and commentate. I tell you, it was a bit scary. Been around some places in the world. I remember in Belfast having to climb up a long ladder to get onto the grandstand roof. And Uli Schmidt, I just said to Uli, hey, listen, you climb up behind me, and if I slip or something, just catch me. A tough boy, Uli. And interesting guy to tour with. Of course, Uli is now living in Australia. Are we going to get Schalk Burger?
Do you want to get him on the line now?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's Schalk Burger Senior, and so we're going to get a little bit of talking about Johan Goosen and the fact that we were wondering whether he didn't come back too early, because I saw that his knee was quite heavily strapped when he played. Now he hurt himself in a practice. Hello, Schalk. Schalk, it's Bladez here.
How's it, you?
Yeah, I'm great, man. We're live. We're now live on Ballz Radio. So welcome. This is a new part of my career, my twilight of my life. I'm now become a DJ.
Well, it's something I think you always wanted to become. I think it's something that you enacted sometimes in your life, didn't you?
Well, we always tried. We always had these fantasies. I can tell you guys who may be watching or listening that Schalk is a mean guitarist. In fact, we were in the Pig and Whistle in Rotorua, and I was sitting on the bar counter. And the next thing is I heard this wonderful sort of sound of this deep voice singing. I can feel it in my fingers, wet, wet, wet. I can feel it in my and I looked around, and there Schalk Burger was sitting on a bar stool playing the blooming guitar. It was fabulous. I was telling Simon works on the desk here at Schalk. He was at Paul Roos. And yeah, for his
don't hate me for it.
Well, you Paul Roos, how do you ever find out that the guy was in Paul Roos?
Oh, what he tells you. Yeah. That's the bishop's joke, man.
Schalky, say you just tell me you're harvesting, are you?
Yeah, we're in the final throes. We've got about still 15 or 18 tons to go from the Bladez.
Yeah.
And then the 2013 harvest is over. It's been a difficult harvest, it's been very dry, a lot of wind, especially in November. We had quite a bit of foliage breakage and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, there's some nice stuff coming through, some of the red cultivars and so forth, and wine is not like beer that you can make every 21 days a new war chamber and let it ferment. We harvest once a year, so we very much, it's an act of God,
Yeah, you're very reliant. Hey, tell me, you still making meerkat?
Yeah, no, the meerkat is doing very well for us. South Africa's most gregarious wine, as we call it, and then all my mates obviously ask me, what the hell is gregarious? And I've even got now my back label.
Yeah.
I've got gregarious adjectives. One, fond of company. Two, living in flocks or communities. And that's what we all are. And I think you're a very gregarious person too.
Yeah, no, that's right. Meerkat and cricket pitch?
Yeah, the cricket pitch has done exceptionally well. It's one red blend, the cricket pitch, the hat-trick and Patriot. We've got 3 blends there now that are all doing very well throughout the world.
Oh,
so
great.
I'm very blessed with that. And the Patriot won the best Bordeaux blend this year in South Africa. So we...
What are your other labels? We're on radio now. You might as well give yourself a punt.
Well, we've also got the new Bohemians here. A little story about Bohemians. We've got now, we can't call it a champagne, but a Method Cup Classic, Mon Renee, named after my daughter. And then, the Rauberach estate range. Obviously, our whole most expensive one is the number 6, the red blend. And
number 6, yeah, for obvious reasons. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's actually... And yourself on the radio now, Huey?
Yeah, Schalky, it's a fun thing that we're doing on a Monday morning. They've asked me to come in and just chat about the weekend and chat about sport and, a little bit about experiences in commentating and general memories about sport and that type of thing. And I was just telling Simon whilst we were playing a bit of boogie-woogie that you and I had toured both Argentina and tell you a funny story about Argentina. Schalk and I were playing with a guy. Well, we were on the tee, and this guy came up and said, "Could he have a game?" in very broken English. And after a while, we sort of he was not hitting the ball that accurately. And every time he came out the rough, he came flying out of the rough, And so Schalk followed him into the rough. And I mean, he was teeing his ball up in the rough. You remember that? So Schalk,
I don't know what to do.
Yeah, well, I think eventually Schalk sort of told the guy no in certain terms that it was against the etiquette of golf to be teeing his ball up in the rough. And the guy, I have to tell you, remember that? We didn't argue with Schalk. Schalk, tell me, how's it going? Were you at Newlands on Saturday?
Yeah, I was at Newlands on Saturday, and I think it's a great win. I think our dear friend Jake White is eating a very terrible piece of humble pie today, because of all these big remarks he made during the week. But it just shows you, and I think you've got to play total rugby, and I think the Stormers, but to play total rugby, you need certain kind of players.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
a certain type of game plan too. I've been quite critical of this forming of pods and one pass ruck type rugby, and I think the Sharks got out of it on Saturday, and then the Stormers played a more rounded, as you say, game, huh?
Yeah, and I think there were a lot of more opportunities to spread the ball wide. If they spread the ball a bit wider earlier on, I think they could have taken the Brumbies even further apart. And because there are opportunities there, and it just seems like many of our players have not got that belief in themselves to be able to pass the ball. And also nowadays, with forwards standing in the back line, I think many forwards can't pass the ball anymore. They just take it in, you know. But passing it to somebody who's in a gap, because eventually the most important thing about rugby, you can't go forward by passing, because that's a forward pass. You've got to carry the ball. So you've actually got to pass the ball to somebody in a position that can get over the advantage line and carry it with speed and come off one another.
Yeah, right.
Now, that tempo was quite nice, you know, on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Great note. I mean, it was a great win, and I've just said, you know, it breaks the Brumbies' unbeaten run. I mean, I think Jake's done a great job with the Brumbies, actually. But I see him this morning's Citizen does say Jake praises the Stormers, so that's nice to see. Schalky, now tell me, very importantly, how's your boykie doing?
Yeah, look, Schalk's had a very, very niggling thing in his calf. You know, we were all very worried about his knee, and that is cleared up perfectly. And now they're trying to sort out his calf, you know. And it's maybe, you know, he's at this point in time with some doctors and so on that are trying to just find out exactly what the problem is.
Yeah.
You know, and we don't know exactly at this point in time. And he doesn't want to force the issue too much, you know. So it's a bit of a standoff. Hopefully within the next week or two we'll know exactly what's going on with the calf, because he can run fine till about 3-4 kilometers. And then it starts going lame, you know, tightening up, let me put it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and all these tests and stuff take time, and, you know, the more scans there are, the more opinions there are. So it's we're trying to work through this period.
Somebody
a car that's got a miss.
Yeah, somebody put forward the theory that, you know, Schalk had a bit, a sort of reconstruction of his knee, and as a result of that, you know, the calf has reacted. Is there any sort of theory that like that?
Well, the one thing about that, I can say that the neurologists and everything that are now looking at him and stuff, that's been disproved. You know.
Okay, yeah, well, that's good. That's good news. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, I mean, Schalky, I mean, what sort of time frame? I mean, he hasn't played for a while yet, and I mean, a lot of people say to me, you know,
obviously it's a lot of frustrating for him. You know, you can just think a guy like him who just wants to play, you know, not being able to play. And then also, you know, with things like this and long-term health and stuff, you've seen problems with Johan Smith maybe getting back too early or whatever, and what that has done.
Yeah, and Johan Goosen as well.
Yeah, you don't want to get into that situation. So, but I think we'll know in the next 2 weeks. That's what all the clever doctors have got to say. So in the next 2 weeks we ought to know exactly what's going on.
Okay. Well, that's great, Schalky. Well, it's great talking to you again. And all the best for the Friday. Yeah, it was like a sort of blast from the past, and we haven't spoken for a little while. And give my love at home, and all our very best to Schalk. And there are a lot of tweets coming through from people saying, you know, we're looking forward to having Schalk back. And so please give him our very best.
To all the listeners there, thanks for the support and everything. You know, it's trying times. You've got to keep focused on this. But also to please give send my regards to Darren in these trying times, and hopefully your stint with Ballz will help the station become even more popular.
Well, you've always been charming, hey? Thanks, Schalk. Lovely talking to you. All the best, hey? Take care.
All the best,
and you. Bye.
Appreciate it.
Bye. Thanks. It's great. We have some, just Google up a little bit. What does Simon do now that Bladez is there in person. Question mark, nothing, question mark. Bladez on Ballz, who? Oh no, that's
What do I do?
No.
I push your buttons.
That's that school Percy went to. Somebody tweeting in John Plumtree's name.
What?
And Kate Nokwe, I see, is tweeting. Philip, there was another one that, if you're walking down the street and a guy says, "Hi, are you the guy who talks so much crap on the TV?" You don't really warm to the guy. Whereas, a guy walks up and says, "Hi," either he can say nothing and leave it alone, or says, "I enjoy your work," or whatever. You warm to that sort of guy a little bit more. And thanks, we've had Ryan Miller. Ryan, thanks for your tweet, being complimentary. That's very nice of you.
But you surely don't get that many people being uncomplimentary to you.
No, not an awful lot. I get people accosting me in the street and saying, "Why are you biased in favour of?" Now, if you were a rebel supporter on Saturday and you were listening to the commentary, by the way, Andy Capistagno was there, you might have thought that Andy was biased towards the Sharks because the Sharks were playing some great rugby and scoring some great tries. And that is, I've talked about bias before, so people do accuse you of. I remember once being at a dinner. I think it was Mark Andrews' benefit dinner. I was sitting next to Ian Mack and all the Sharks rugby players around, and a lady walked up with an open autograph book, and it was being passed around the table. And when the autograph book got to me, I had pen poised, and this lady whipped the autograph book away and said, "No, not you, you're biased against the Sharks." Bit taken aback. But yeah, that sometimes. I remember also, I think I also have told you that I got an SMS saying, "Beware, you're sounding like you're a Bull supporter." But because I live in Joburg and because there's no English-speaking commentator who lives in Pretoria, I do a lot of Bulls games. And about 3 years ago, when the Bulls were working towards the championship, I did a lot of their games at very full houses at Loftus Versfeld. And the atmosphere was brilliant. The crowd was great. The Bulls were playing great rugby. Farid Priya was at the height of his career. They had Mornay Steyn was playing great rugby. Of course, Bucky's and Victor. And so the Bulls, and so I had a few people saying to me, "You're a Bulls supporter, aren't you?" I've said this also to you before. I was born in Joburg, born in Hillbrow. when Hillbrow was quite a joint. There were a lot of nursing homes in Hillbrow, and so a lot of us, of the people of my vintage who lived in Joburg, were born in Hillbrow. And my wife actually trained at the Gen, and when she was training at the Gen, I used to pick her up, and we would walk into Hillbrow and Clay Oven and Mel Miller. Mel Miller said the other day, he said, very much tongue-in-cheek now, he said, "My wife had a rose tattooed on her left breast. It now looks like a bougainvillea." Mel was in my class at school, in matric, and we had a Afrikaans master by the name of the Blob, Volmerans. And we used to walk into the Afrikaans class because at Kes, the teachers didn't move class. Every period we moved classes. And the Blob used to say, Mauritians, and then he would say, "Okay, Miller, come and tell your joke." And Mel would go up and have us in hysterics. I mean, say he was even a comedian at school. Villain. No. I see guys talking about the Formula One, the Grand Prix. There was obviously some drama in the Grand Prix We had a family christening yesterday, so I hardly watched any of the cricket as well.
Well, basically what happened is Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber are teammates at Red Bull.
Oh, right.
And Vettel overtook Webber when he was told not to. The team orders stayed, and Vettel overtook him, as I understand it. I didn't see the race.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So
And now...
No, but I mean, surely Vettel would need the points more than Webber.
Well, anyway, Webber's nose is now out of joint because
I'm
of that.
sure it would be, yeah. Okay, but Sasha's going to be
He'll
here.
go into that.
Sasha's going to be here in about 40 minutes' time, 45 minutes' time, and Sasha Martinengo will go into that, because I saw yesterday, in fact, that he was hosting the discussion and the build-up to the Grand Prix. Don't get it wrong, I mean, I don't dislike motor racing, but I just find I battle to watch it for a whole race. Enjoy the start and enjoy the finish and things like that. But it's unreal how motor racing has a following. It's fantastic. Oh, buddy, Albert Fullard, thanks for your tweet. It's great to know that you're listening. I've got a daughter who lives in Basel in Switzerland, and it's difficult for her because she's obviously right now working, but she's picked us up in Basel. And when I had Sid may be coming in. I said earlier he'd had to go and see the biokinetician. Sid's got a new leg, a computerized new leg. He had to go down to Cape Town. He's been in close consultation with Natalie Dutoy, and Natalie's been absolutely fantastic. And Sid went down to Cape Town to get a new leg, a prosthesis, should I say. And it's a fancy thing. It's got a sort of like computer in it, and you can change the angle, and it's really helping him, because his first leg fell off. So I, of course, said to Sydney, "Are you legless again?"
And what did he say? That's rich.
It fell off in my lounge. And my wife, being a nursing sister, was trying to help Sydney put his leg back on. and he luckily I had a few of my mates around, and they helped with sort of sorting Sid's leg out. But if you can't listen, I had a very bad accident and was in a wheelchair for 7 months. And if you can't laugh about these things, you might as well pack up. And I know, we're not laughing. We're laughing with people at.
Well, Sid's very chilled about it.
Sid is so cool, and we were actually discussing it yesterday. How we had a massive family lunch yesterday because my youngest grandson was christened at St. Columba's Church. Chunky Young, maybe some of you guys know Chunky. He also is the pastor at the Johannesburg Sportsman's Club and tells some real risque jokes before he says grace. But Chunky ran the service, and hell, he's a great guy, Chunky. So simple and down to earth, and he was really good. But we were talking, one of the family is a doctor, and we were talking about this, the question of prostheses, and the fact how Sid is handling it and how well he is doing. I of course fell out of a building.
Yeah, tell us that story, because people speculate, and you hear different versions of it. What happened?
Well, it's funny how rumors.
Yeah.
So first of all, it's gone from anything from 10 floors to 1 floor, and I fell out of the 5th floor onto a ledge above the car park, concrete ledge above the car park, where the cars drive in at the Edward Hotel. And it's nothing sinister at all. We went, and it was during the Toyota Club Championships, and we went to the Erlangen. A mate of mine, Ralph Hesketh Marie, who's also since passed on, we went to the Erlangen, and Robbie Savage, who's also, shame, all these guys have passed on. Robbie Savage had the hospitality suite, he had the presidential suite, or the major suite at the Erlangen Hotel, and we had a hell of a party there. I mean, there were some well-known people, General Geldenhuys, Jannie Geldenhuys, who was head of the army, Morf Mayberg was there, Robbie Savage, who played centre for Natal and was one of the great, he was one of the great liaison officers. Robbie was a good rugby player himself, but one of the great liaison officers of all time, and he used to look after teams, and he was the major guy at the Toyota Club Championships, and so we had a hell of a party at his suite. Staggered back to the Edward Hotel, and I staggered onto the balcony, and fell over.
Staggered off it.
And I can't remember a thing about it. But you know, Sydney was pushing me around in a wheelchair. First of all, my ankles went through my heels, and I cracked my left side of my pelvis and broke every rib in my body, and had my spleen removed. So I wasn't in great shape, and spent about a month in hospital at Addington in Durban, and they were absolutely great. And then came up. Louis Late flew me up on his private jet. You know, the much maligned Louis Late. Organized for his private jet, because I couldn't be moved. I could only be moved in a hammock because I had all these broken bones. And Louis Late phoned my wife. I was a Transvaal selector at the time, and Louis Late phoned my wife to see how I was, and she just said, we've got a bit of a problem. Not even thinking about, she was just talking to Louis socially and said, got a bit of a problem because we have to, the boys and girls have to get back to school. And Hughie's stuck here in Addington Hospital and can't be moved. And Louis about an hour later, Louis phoned my wife and said, my private jet will be in the air tomorrow to fetch Hughie if he can be moved in the hammock. There would be 2 doctors, a driver to drive your car back. I've organized for an ambulance to pick him up on Lanseria Airport, and he will go to the Rosebank Clinic into a private ward. And that was Louis Late. I say much maligned in many ways, but he was great. He was absolutely, and so I was getting to the point where we laugh about it. And Sydney used to wheel me around, and we went to this black tie dinner. I was in the wheelchair with my dinner jacket on and tackies, because I could only fit into size of about 12 tackies. And some guy came up and he said, "Oh, hello, Mr. Bladen. I suppose you now realize that fly halves can't fly." Sasha's just arrived. Sasha's going to tell you all about the F1 Grand Prix and how Webber and Vettel fought it out. Yeah.
The last thing on your fall out of off the balcony. Who found you?
An American, well, he wasn't really an American tourist. He was an American who was with Wildlife Foundation. Now, I know all this because this American guy flew back to Joburg the following, about 2 days later, and he was staying with people that we knew. And he was, telling these people about this amazing incident of looking over his balcony. And so he phoned my older brother, and he said to my brother, he said, I was going to go running in the morning. I was on the 2nd floor of the Edward Hotel. I was going to go running in the morning, and I was putting on my singlet to go and run. And he said that either the wind blew the balcony door or something. He said I'd heard the sound like a sack of potatoes hitting the ground, but hadn't really given it much thought. He went down to the foyer of the hotel. He told my brother all this. To the foyer, started running, walked, turned back, went up to his room, walked out onto the balcony, and looked over, and I was lying there on this ledge, bleeding to death. He said to my brother, "Were you strictly brought up?" I think I've also told you this story, haven't I? He said, were you strictly brought up? So my brother said, well, we were brought up by a single parent mother who was very strict. And my brother sort of said, why do you ask? He said, because I looked over the balcony and there was this body lying there in a pool of blood. And I said, how are you doing? He said, and your brother looked up and said, I'm fine, thanks. How are you? Crazy things we do in life, eh? Anyway, okay, that's enough about that.
Okay, well, there you go. You've dispelled all the rumors and the myths.
Have we got Rihanna with Stay?
Do you want it?
Yeah, let's have Rihanna
All right,
with
here we
Stay.
go.
I think that's a great song, and if you were online with us, you could have watched that video of Stay. Terrific song, I think it is. We've still got the Hall of Fame. We've got some. I know you've taken the tweets off my screen. That's what Simon does now. He's pushing buttons, but only whilst I'm sort of on the show on Monday mornings. So you can. We've had some. Duncan Betteridge. Thank you, Duncan. Keith Ingle. What do you think about the Stormers? I think we can now say they are getting there. Yeah, I think so. We had fun discussing this, but I say we had a family lunch because my youngest grandson was christened, and there were 4 or 5 men there, and all of them telling us who they supported and who they were, and we had some quite good fun rambling on about rugby and that sort of thing. We're going to get H.D. Ackerman on the phone in a few moments. We've talked rugby with Schalk Burger. Sid said he may come in, but I think the time
He's running out of time.
starting to run out. Oh, that's nice. And
Hello.
yeah, now we have HD on the line. HD, it's Bladez here.
Hello, Bladez. How are you going?
I'm very well. We're live on Ballz Radio, HD. I don't know whether you know
Fabulous.
this. I don't know whether you know this, but when I was 21, in fact, I had my 21st birthday on the tour. I went on a Wilfred Isaacs cricket tour, and
Okay.
most of our tour took place around about Stellenbosch. I mean, fabulous time. In fact, we stayed at the Landsrack Hotel for 5 days, 5 nights. And
How ideal is that?
how ideal was it? And Stellenbosch had as their resident pro Trevor Goddard, and they had Richard Steyn, who became editor of the Star. They had Dave Mackay, who was a Western Province seamer, and your old man was in Matric. And he joined our tour, and we played against Stellenbosch with this attack, and he at lunchtime he had 97 not out, and
Yeah.
I don't know whether you ever know this, but your dad, part of our tour, when we finished in the Cape, we then went on board ship on a Union Castle line from Cape Town to Port Elizabeth, and your dad and I were cabin mates. Yes, did we have a
Okay.
did we have a party? Did we have a party?
I'm pretty.
Yeah, we in fact.
Yeah, I'm
what-
pretty.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure you had an immense party, because the only story that I know of him going on a ship was when him and Mike Proctor went on the SA Val to
Ah.
England,
Yeah.
and they were confined to cabins by the captain because they had thrown the grand piano overboard.
Oh, God. Yeah, well, that's amazing. We in fact, we had our manager was a guy called Ronnie Eriksson, who you may have heard of. Was for years the manager of the Transvaal side, and we used to call him Commander because he was a ship's captain, during the Second World War, and he was a very big naval guy, and he knew the captain of the ship, and we actually had a cricket match against the crew. No, we didn't have a cock-a-lolly side. I mean, Gary Watson was on our side. Harry Avnet was all guys who played for either Transvaal B or Transvaal. Dave Mackay Coghill, who was in fact picked for South Africa on that cancelled tour, as was your dad.
Yeah, yes.
As was your dad. Charco Watson was on our team. Hugh Tayfield, who had sort of retired, but probably South Africa's greatest ever spinner. But anyway, enough of the past. And I mean, we had a hell of a good time. In fact, afterwards we then went to the crew's quarters, and ended up playing clap clap. Names of clap clap, famous clap clap. And we had certain members. With certain members of the crew who were as thick as 2 planks, and so they knew nothing, and their senior officers would just say drink, and the guys were motherless drunk.
I can tell you that you had a lot more fun in those days than they did now. I mean, last night after the victory, I immediately rushed off to the airport to board the plane to come home.
Yeah.
After South Africa beat Pakistan, and on the plane were some of the members of the team. So I'm not sure they even celebrated their series win.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute no-no in days gone by.
I know, yeah, absolutely incredible. HG, obviously, I mean, it's been great listening to you on the telly, on the box. I think you're doing a great job. You're enjoying it.
I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. I mean, when the cricket career came to an end, I thought, oh no, that's it. I'm going to be in front of the TV now for the rest of my life watching cricket.
Yeah, it gives you a new lease on life, doesn't it?
But yeah, fortunately now I've got as you know with rugby, I've got the best seats in the house. If anyone else sits where I'm sitting, they get told to get out the way because they're in front of the sight screen. So I've got the best seats in the house, and I don't have to pay an entrance fee. So it's unbelievable.
Yeah, fabulous. And I mean, some great performances by South Africa.
There have been, Hugh. You know, AB de Villiers. I know that he's only ranked number 2 in the world in Test cricket and in one days, but that's because he's behind the mighty Hashim Amla. But you know, AB has been a phenomenon this summer with the bat, and I'm so glad that he's done that, because what he's done is he's put, you know, all the naysayers to bed, if you can say that, as far as should he be keeping wicket and batting, because they were worried that it was going to affect his batting. Well, if it is affecting his batting, I say bring on more wicket-keeping duties, because he's done an incredible job. And you know, from a leadership point of view, I heard him say after the game in the post-match presentation that, you know, he's learning all the time, which is great, because there will always be critics as far as tactics are concerned, because he is only a young leader. But he certainly leads from the front as far as run scoring is concerned, and it's a very good victory for South Africa.
Tell me another question that came up. We had a big family luncheon yesterday. I've told people this because my youngest grandson was christened, and we had all these sports mad people sitting around, and we didn't watch all the cricket yesterday. I mean, somebody said the track was a bit dodgy.
Yeah, look, I don't think it was the best one-day wicket, but I think as far as Benoni was concerned, it wasn't that bad. I mean, there's been some poor wickets there in the past in domestic cricket. There's also been some good ones. It's no bones about that. But I think we've become so accustomed to seeing, you know, Wanderers, Chris Scott prepare these belters of surfaces for one-day cricket. I mean, teams getting 434 and it getting chased down, and this season over 300 scored, and Pakistan got close to it. Shahid Afridi got 80 and 40 balls or something, and it's just pure excitement as far as the public are concerned. But you know, this one, so it was a little bit tougher, but you know, sometimes it's nice to see these superstars struggle a little. I don't know how you feel in rugby terms, but you know, it's like the golfers. We see them scoring 30 under and winning a tournament. Every now and again, it's nice to see a winning score of level par. So
yeah,
you know,
no, I agree with you. Absolutely.
Yeah, so you know, it was tough work for the batsmen.
Yeah, but the bowlers had a chance. I mean, you know, I sometimes think in T20 cricket, the bowlers are just cannon fodder.
Yeah, you know, those with the attitude of I'm cannon fodder tend to be cannon fodder. But you look at a young guy like a guy like Alfonso Thomas, who plays for the Titans, and unfortunately not available for South Africa. Married an English girl. He's not going to turn out for England, but he's not available for South Africa. He sort of said that his job is to spoil the party, and he does a fantastic job in spoiling that party. So it's really just an attitude as far as the bowlers are concerned. But yesterday they did have an opportunity, and we saw a pretty low-scoring game, but it was still an exciting game, and the full house in Benoni were entertained by an exhibition of batting from AB de Villiers, and also nice to see two young guys in Farhan Bayardin and David Miller step up to the plate and play two nice little cameos there to help their captain.
It is great. I must say, last week, Dan Retief was my studio guest, and we were just talking about cricket, and I say, and this is no word of a lie, and Hashim Amla has become a real hero of mine.
I think he's become a hero of many, Hugh.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard. I spoke at a dinner the other night, in fact, at Durban Country Club, and I asked the audience if anyone still had a problem with his technique, because you know, there was all those critics all those years ago that he'll never make it. He's got such a terrible technique, etc., etc. Well, he got dropped from the South African side, went and worked in it, people will still look at his technique, and if you dissect it, you'll probably find there's one or two errors. But I tell you what, powers of concentration.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone in the world
A revelation.
like he.
And also,
He's
you know, I mean,
phenomenal,
it's not like he sticks around. I mean, he gets on with it. I mean, even in Test cricket, you know, I mean, he really gets on with it.
He's an absolute nightmare to bowl to or to captain, because he hits the very same ball. He can hit the very same ball that a bowler bowls. And when I say the same ball, I'm not talking about the same ball, but a ball that's pitched in the same area, that's the same line. He can hit it on both sides of the ground.
Yeah,
You know, so he's able to hit the ball from outside off stump through the offside. He's also able to hit it through the leg side. And when you've got 9 fielders, there's always got to be an odd number somewhere. So he just exposes that all the time. And for a captain and a bowler, it's an absolute nightmare. It really is. But he's brilliant. He's going to be part of the side for many years to come, and it's great. We sort of sleep a little easier knowing that when Jacques Kallis retires, God help us, he never does.
Yeah, well, that was about to be my next question. You know, being close to
at least we got Hash.
Being close to the action, what is the situation? I mean, is he just on a rest or is he injured?
No, he's not injured at all. You know, I know that him and Gary Kirsten sat down about a year and a half ago, and Gary said to him, you know, what do you want? And Jacques said, I want to get to the next World Cup. And and Gary said to him, well, then you've got to trust me to manage you so that we can get you there. So Jacques going to go to the Champions Trophy. That is the story at the moment. So he's going to go to England and play in that one-day tournament.
Right.
I know people will say, but he hasn't had any match practice. Well, he has, actually, because he's played over 200 one-day internationals, so he's had plenty of match practice.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, he just didn't play in this series. But, you know, I don't know, 2 years before he calls it a day. You know, I think we should make it a public holiday when he does, because that's how good I think he's been.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I'm not so sure that it's a strange sort of thing. It's only sort of in about the last year or so that I think he's got the credit for what he's done. Yeah,
but, you know, you're right. There's no doubt about that. In that, you know, I know we talk about it a bit in the air and we try to give him more of a punt, and I think, you know, it's because he let's be honest, he played in a side which was a good side. Anthony Cronje, John T. Rhodes, Gary Kirsten. These guys were all good players.
Yeah.
If you look at John T, averaged in the 30s, Hansie averaged in the 30s, Gary averaged in the 40s, which is very good.
Yeah.
But Jacques was sort of the responsibility on his shoulders as a young man, and as a middle-aged cricketer. When I say 25, 26, there was so much responsibility on his shoulders that he sort of played in a way where, yes, he protected his wicket, and we didn't see much of his flair and things like that. So he didn't entertain the way a Lara or a Tendulkar or Ponting did when they were in full flight.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, if Jacques Kallis played in the same side that Ricky Ponting played in, I promise you he would have been entertaining, because now when you see him bat, he's got AB de Villiers behind him, he's got Hashim Amla in front of him, he's got Graham Smith in front of him. His strike rate has increased tenfold. Yeah. And he's a joy to watch. So I think, you know, the statistics don't lie. He is better than all those guys. Lara, for me, was a superstar because he played in such a poor West Indies team.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Jacques Kallis is, the fact that we sit debating whether he's one of the best batsmen in the world is amazing, because all those best batsmen, Tendulkar, Ponting, Lara, they don't have 290 test wickets and 190 test catches. You know?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
He's an amazing,
incredible. Now, what is his test batting average? About 56 now.
Yeah, it came down a little bit. He didn't have the most prolific summer.
Yeah.
It was around about 56, but you know he's getting his wicket tally up now near that 300 mark. And when Dale Steyn got his 300 the other day at Newlands against New Zealand, he got a standing ovation. You know, the whole of Newlands rose to the superstar who got to 300 test wickets. And I thought it's going to be amazing, because Kallis will get there, and when he does, he's got 13,000 test runs as well.
Yeah, I know. It's remarkable. It's remarkable. Now, just because when they talk about test averages, I know when they talk about, you know, the highest test average, they talk about guys who played in 20 tests, and I think that my mate Jeeps, Graham Pollock, is the highest batting average of any living person, which is about
That is correct.
at about 60
It's about 67 or something.
No,
Yeah,
I think it's
is.
about
I mean,
61. Anyway, I won't argue about
Oh,
that.
six-
I think it's about 61. And I know,
Yeah,
that I mean, Jacques is right up there, and he's played over over 100 tests. I mean, it's a remarkable record.
Yeah, it is. Schalk is a remarkable man, and he's been a remarkable performer for South Africa. But I think we must also remember that when you travel around the world as you've done so extensively, you'll hear people talk about Pollock and Richards, and I don't think that any of the current players, for 1 minute, think that those guys wouldn't have been absolute superstars in the modern era. We always hear that spoken about, the modern era.
Yeah,
They
sure.
were two unbelievable players.
Yeah.
I only got to watch them when I was a little boy. I used to go to when the West Indian Rebel side were out here, and
Right.
the Australian Rebel side.
Yeah.
And it was that was amazing to watch those two guys bat as well.
It's quite interesting because Simon, Simon Hill, the guy who tries to imitate me. Little bastard.
How you doing, H? You fine?
Well, Simon,
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. Loving your talk here with fake blades.
well, for just a short moment in time, I was thinking, am I really talking to the great Hugh Bladen, or am I talking to that delinquent Simon Hill?
No, quite interesting. Simon's just thrown up DG Bradman, average of 99.94, and then phoning up Pujara, the Indian. But he's only played 13 test matches. His average is 65.5, and then Robert Graham Pollock at 60.97. And
Amazing. But now,
Graham played
I'll tell
23
you-
test matches.
I'll tell you about Pujara, is that he looks a nice player, but I want to see him come and average 65 in South African conditions.
I know, yeah. Isn't it amazing how they've just annihilated the Aussies there?
Australia seem in turmoil, don't they? I mean, I think Mickey Arthur's taking a lot of flack, but I'm not sure it's all been his doing. When we were over in Australia, the stories around were that Michael Clarke wasn't the most popular of leaders. Whether those were just stories or true, I don't know. But not the most popular of leaders. Him and Watson didn't get on so famously. But I must admit, I'm enjoying it a little bit to see Australia struggle. They dominated it so long, and they were such a great team to watch. Even though I was a South African supporter, I enjoyed watching them play.
Sure.
It's nice that we're on top of the world at the moment and looking down upon all of them.
Isn't it just? Yeah, fabulous. HD, we've run out of time, and it's fabulous talking to you, and thank you for taking our call. And
No, thank you for phoning me.
just how's Jackers? Is Jackers good?
Yeah, Jack, I'm so glad he's back in the commentary box. For me and for the cricketing commentators, he's our doyen, as you are for the rugby guys. So, when he comes, he passes on all the information that he's garnered over the last 40 odd years, and he's so happy to teach, which has been fantastic. So, as a commentary team, we can only improve with Jackers around helping us out. So
Yeah,
we're
it's
thrilled
fine.
that he's back. It's going to take a bit of time for him to get back to his best, but we're glad he's back.
Fabulous. It's really great. Jack is a good mate of mine, and what a raconteur. I mean, I've heard Jackers speak at various functions, and just to be in his company. I've played golf with him a few times, and I mean, he just keeps you amused. He and Quirky together are a sight to behold, as Quirky would say. They're just
It's such a pity that we don't get to spend much time with Trevor, because I know that he was obviously involved for many years with commentary and that. But it would have been great if he was still around, because they would keep us entertained, because they're very funny men.
Yeah. So I would just run down. It's quite interesting because we might get some tweets about Jacques Callis. Jacques Callis is actually further down the list than I thought he would be. At about, you've got Pujara, Pollock, Headley, Sutcliffe, Painter, Barrington, Week, Hammond, Sobers, Sangakkara, Hobbs, Walcott, Hutton, Callis. So he's really...
Yeah, that's not that's not bad. There's only one name there that has got a bowling record like him though, and that's Sir Garfield.
Yeah.
So the rest of them.
Yeah, no, as an all-rounder, I mean, he's just ridiculously good. Plus the fact that
but
he's
the thing is,
played.
I know you got to go, but we say all-rounder. But let's just bear in mind where he bats, Blades. He doesn't bat at number 6 or number 7, where your traditional all-rounders bat.
Yeah, where you get 70 not out and that sort of thing.
Yeah, he batted at 3, and now he's at 4. You know, so he's a top-order batsman. It's it's some. Let me tell you, that's some record.
Well, it is some record, and also, you know, of those top guys, he's played 162 tests. Sangakkara is second most out of all those guys at 117 tests. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's brilliant.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
At about 40,000 rand a test match, he's probably a wealthy guy as well.
Absolutely great. H, thanks for talking to us. Keep up the good work, and when you see the boys, and particularly Jackers, please give them our very, very best.
I will do. Thanks very much, Blaze, and we'll chat to you soon.
Thanks for chatting. Lovely. Bye.
Okay, bye now.
Ciao, ciao. Roxette and Dressed for Success. I suppose if I thought back on my life, I'd never actually think that I sort of would be sitting at a desk being a sort of DJ sort of oak. Quite. Dylan McAvoy, thanks for your tweets.
Tweets, man.
Tweets.
Yeah.
Duncan Betteridge, Keith Ingle. Jeremy James asked me to ask HD something. Jeremy, I'm sorry about that. Because I just, whilst I was talking to HD, I wasn't able to read the tweets. But we'd ask him why he blocked me after I suggested he learn the proper pronunciation of Pakistan names. A bit too sensitive, I believe. I can tell you, and I told you the other day about commentating when Samoa had a left wing called Tani Thakibao. And the Georgian fool's back's name was Khekhelashvili. And you know, when we commentated the Lions played against Russia, very often you can get hold of a press guy, the press liaison guy, who will give you the correct pronunciation of the names, but sometimes it's very difficult to get it, and so I'm sure, you know, HD is that conscientious that he would welcome anybody. I would welcome anybody, you know, correcting us politely about the pronunciation of names. We were talking about cricketers and the fact that Jacques Callis had made so many runs. The first guy to make out 10,000 test runs and play in 100 test matches was Sunil Gavaskar. And Sunil Gavaskar played, you know, Vince van der Bijl, who was another guy who was picked for that 71 tour that never took place. Vince van der Bijl went over and played for Middlesex, and he was brilliant. He was top of the bowling averages by some margin. He had a bowling average of about 10, and he took over 100 wickets in the season, which was, you know, I mean, already the landmark at 100 wickets. And Vince went to play, he was playing for Middlesex, he went to play against Somerset at Taunton, and Somerset had replaced Sir Viv Richards with Sunil Gavaskar, the little Indian fellow who's about 5'4". And he, in fact, you hear him quite often on commentary. Vince ran up to bowl to Sunil Gavaskar, slightly short outside off stick, and Gavaskar leant back and lashed the ball past point for 4. Vince ran up the second ball, overcorrected a little bit. Gavaskar leant back on his back foot and just flicked him over the fine leg boundary for 6. Third ball, Vince runs in, bowls, slightly better ball, moved a little bit outside off stick. Gavaskar played forward and missed. Vince van der Bijl was 6'7", 6'8". For those younger guys who never saw him bowl, trotted down the track, towered over Sunil Gavaskar. I'm going to transfer the F word to "for Pete's sake." He said to him, "For Pete's sake, Concentrate, you nasty little man. That was Vince van der Bijl. Great sense of humour. Duncan Bettridge, I did think. Anyway, thanks for all your tweets. It's been once again great being here. To Simon Hill, who's really learning to push these buttons extremely efficiently.
I think I've been pushing your buttons for a while, I think.
And to Simon, thanks
Pleasure,
a lot.
Blades. Pleasure.
And to all of you, keep watching Ballz Radio. Sasha Martinengo is up with some juicy stuff next.
That was the Blades on Ballz show. Join the voice of South African rugby on your wireless next Monday for more unbelievable memories and banter. Until then, stay classy, like 20-year-old Glenn Morangi classy.